Welcome to our work session for the month of September. It's nice to see this good crowd here. Glad you could join us. We like to begin each meeting with a moment of silence. We'd invite you to join us if you care to. Thank you. First is our Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Garland, do you have someone, a student, to do the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Three of our students here to do.
Okay, well, come on up and
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
very good job. Good job. Thank you. And we will be back to you and Mrs. King in just a minute. We're going to do some special recognitions first, and then we'll turn it over to you. Dr. Thorson?
Yes, so first of all, we have some very fast young ladies with us. And because the state track meet was in May at the end of last school year, it didn't work out for them to attend the last board meeting of the year. So we asked them to come at the beginning of this year. And I'll start by introducing Brian Buckner. You may know him as the pastor out at New Hope, but he moonlights as a track and cross country coach at Walhalla High School. So Coach Buckner, you want to share some information and introduce these young ladies that you brought with you tonight?
This group of young ladies right here they were a tremendous blessing to coach, and I've coached some of them for the last several years, and we've watched as the pieces have been coming into place for something like this to happen, and they've gotten gradually faster and faster and faster. And so after our first couple of races this past year, I thought we might actually be able to do something this year. I mean, there was nobody close to them at all. They actually did not lose a race all season long. They're four of the hardest working young ladies that I have ever met in my life, and just a pleasure to coach. And I'm going to introduce them to you. On the end is Lexi Ransom. So if you want to stand up.
And actually, Coach, we would like for all of you, if you'll come up here, we're going to take a picture in a minute. The board will come down and stand with them. We'd like to be able to tweet that picture out and possibly put it on a website somewhere. So Lexi, come on down. You get to be the first one.
Yeah, she gets to stand alone. Then we have Abby Zerbel next. Emily Arenas. And Savannah Rex.
So, board members, if you'll, one thing I just want to say as the board's walking down there, the board has an expectation that our school district be a top 10 school district in the state of South Carolina. And sure, we can measure that academically, and that's what we're striving for, but they've also said that they want us to be top 10 in all areas, so not just academically. And we like to highlight examples where our students excel, and here's another example of our students doing a great job representing Oconee County across our state. Another good thing is none of them graduated, so they're all still competing for our schools this year. And you want to join me with the next one too?
Oh, okay.
And we have one more special recognition. So, of course, being a school board member is an elected office, and the state legislature has put forth expectations for training of school board members. So anyone can be elected, but there's certain restrictions, but you get elected to be a school board member. But then you have to go through training to understand your role as a school board member. And tonight we have a certificate of achievement from the South Carolina School Boards Association. That's the agency that does all the training for our school board members across the state. And let's see, we have Joe Lucat, who has reached the level 3 in school board level training. And how many levels are there? 6?
Six.
You get 6 levels. And Mr. Lucat has reached level 3. And Dr. Sloan has reached level 2 very quickly. Of course, she came on the school board almost a year ago, and she's already reached level 2 in 11 months. So we're happy for her.
Y'all get in there close.
Okay, yeah, let's, okay.
This hurts. It's not to try, Mr. Rook, anyway. Thank you.
And that's all. Okay, now school highlights. James M. Brown Elementary, Miss King and Miss Garland. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm Erin Garland, I'm one of the assistant principals at James M. Brown.
I'm her partner, I'm Sandy King, assistant principal at James M. Brown. I'm so happy to be joining you. It's a wonderful program. Thank you.
So as part of our highlight, we wanted to share first and foremost our mission at James M. Brown. And our mission at our school is that we will create an environment where students are loved and where they love to learn. We realize that with our students in our population, we have a lot of generational poverty, and so a lot of them are kind of disenfranchised and have an apathetic point of view for school. And so we really have to overcome a lot of things to get our kids to really love to be there. And so,
But we've also realized as a Title I school, that just reflects their ability to pay for a meal. It does not reflect their intelligence in any way, shape, or form. And we have been looking to get that paradigm shift with everybody, the community at large.
so how do we achieve that mission, to getting them to love, to know that they're loved at school and to love to be there, is that we have to provide them with reasons to want to come to school. And this is one of our favorite quotes from an author, Adam Kavico. He does a lot of work in educational leadership. You can't teach students if they're not there, and we are very proud of the fact that in the last year we increased our attendance rate school-wide, and so that's been a part of that effort of trying to get our kids excited to be at school.
There's certain things that have been behind the scenes helping with this. She mentioned Adam DeVico. The leadership team went to visit him at his school, so we really worked, and his assistant principal is mentoring us, and principal's mentoring Ashley, working with her. Ms. Robertson, Ashley Robertson is our principal, and she had another appointment today, so that's why she's not here. So we do professional development all around the country. Ms. Robertson and Ms. Garland have gone to get your teach on.
So we sent a group of teachers to a conference in New Orleans a year ago. And then since then, Ms. Robertson and I have attended on our own time, because we are very passionate about the things that Get Your Teach On represents. And so really looking at learning and pushing people outside of their comfort zone to try to make learning more engaging and more fun for our students to be there, but by keeping that fun connected to something rigorous in content. So we had teachers go to that session. We also had the group go to Charlotte. We had several teachers go to Dallas this past summer. And Ms. Robertson and I are getting ready to go serve on the volunteer team in Connecticut. And every time we go, we learn something new and new ways to involve our students and really embrace things like technology, music, and even the arts in the classroom.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is it's just fun, because when things are going on, some of these activities, like a room transformation or something like that, it does look fun. But what's actually happening is we are addressing different learning styles. Traditional school is mostly auditory or visual. and especially our subgroups, like our EL learners, English language learners, and our boys that are more kinesthetic and have to move around to do things, these type of activities are pulling up those subgroups, so that's exciting.
All right, so these are just some of the other ways that Get Your Teach On kind of encourages you to think outside the box. Using music in your lessons, creating that environment that kind of stimulates learning or gets kids excited. One of my favorite lessons to see, and our teachers, several of our teachers do this, and we purchase black lights and glow-in-the-dark materials for them to do this, but it's called Get Your Neon Read On. And so the kids are looking at nonfiction articles, they highlight important parts, and they look at text structure. And then when you turn the lights off and the black light's on, those things that have been highlighted kind of stand out to you, so the kids really are working on summarizing key details.
But they think they're on a time machine.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And they love it, and then they get to wear the glow-in-the-dark glasses, and it's just, and they go home and they remember those things, and they remember text structure, the different types of text structure because of the way it glows. It's just very powerful.
And it's not a program, so it's not like we come into a third grade classroom and say, you have to do this. You can see there's different options, so we give teachers the freedom. What can you do to reach your students and engage them, and in doing so, bring the rigor up?
Right, so another thing that we have at James and Brown is our house system. So it's kind of modeled off of the Harry Potter house system where and they have the magic sorting hat and all those things, but we have a wheel and students spin, and every student and every staff member is in a house. Students, it kind of fuels friendly competition, and the students are working up with behavior points, and they're also working for, we get house incentives too, so like a house that if we're doing a service project, we might award points for different housing, or different houses for that kind of thing. So these are our, we call them the SMART houses, because it's service, manners, achievement, rigor, and teamwork. And
The students all have shirts that go with theirs, and they know, like, my House of Manners, and if you're in House of Manners, we have a real secret sign, but they know their expertise is with manners, and they are to model that for everybody. And every child becomes an expert in something. They're expected to demonstrate all those skills, but this is the one that they'll really refine.
And what we've seen to be really powerful with this is that these houses span kindergarten through fifth grade, and so, or pre-K through fifth grade, I'm sorry. And so monthly they meet in house meetings where you see kids getting to know one another at different grade levels and kind of forming that family within a school building type environment. So it's been really powerful to see. All right, so another way that we achieve that, making school a place where students love to be, is with our first day block party. For 2 years now, we've done a very non-traditional first day of school. We've grouped our kids in houses, which equates to about 100 kids in each house. And that seems like a lot of chaos to coordinate. But the kids love it because we focus them in 4 different groups. In one group, they're working on behavior expectations. They had a session with me this year. We talked about positive behavior incentives and, behavior expectations school-wide. In one session, they learned about the history of our school and Mr. Jason Brown over there. In another session, they did team building, social emotional learning, and then in another session, they talked about goal setting and with the house system in general.
And I pointed over that way, for those that don't know, James Ed Brown, second from the right picture, he was a former superintendent of our school district.
And then Rock Your School is another event that we do to try to really push that thinking outside the box mentality to engage students in different types of learning. And last year was the first annual, it was a national event. Hope and Wade King of Get Your Teach On kind of sponsored this event. We asked every grade level to participate in some way. You can see a couple of different examples here. One of my favorites, our kindergarten team did the 5 senses with Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, and then each classroom transformed into that sense. And so in one room, they learned all about different smells, and they smelled different things, and they were blindfolded, so they were learning about different types of scents or smells. And then there was one like that for each of the 5 senses, and the kids traveled through those. You can see as a kindergartner that's something memorable that you'll hold on to and remember forever. So, and then we have with the caution tape, that was a crime scene of the Great Cookie Thief. And
Who was the thief? It was me.
So our first grade teacher had put clues around the school, and the team of detectives, they had to do different reading, and math problems to solve the code. And so it just kind of got them up and moving out of the classroom. And then one of our fifth grade teachers did the Reconstruction Escape, and they were reading articles about Reconstruction, and she created like an escape room type environment. So they had to read the nonfiction articles to get the right answers to be able to break out of the room.
And see, that's where we can build in the rigor, because the children want to do these activities. I'm looking at, we have a kindergarten teacher in the back. Another transformation they did was when they were learning about bats. The whole room was dark except the little black lights, and they made caves. And those children were learning words like echolocation, and the vocabulary, we're upping it, and they're remembering it, because they're not just sitting getting.
So this year, we are planning, we're in the works planning for our second annual Rock Your School event, which is next Thursday. And we have teachers already brainstorming and getting things ready. And then one thing that administration has decided to do this year, which is different, is that each of the three of us will be hosting our own room transformation and teaching classes that day.
We feel as instructional leaders, if we're expecting our teachers to do it, then we need to be able to do it as well. So we're working, we really do that, it's a partnership with our teachers.
And so Ms. Robertson is doing a Toy Story room where she's doing a lot of STEAM activities, and she's looking at those standard space timelines to kind of pull in for goals and objectives for that. I'm doing getting techie with it, for like technology and integrating that into literature and reading response.
And I am going to be setting up a science lab for mad science chemistry.
Yeah. So we are looking forward to that day. We have a lot to do to get ready, but.
And if anybody's available that day, we'd love to have you all join us. Yes, please.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Next on the agenda is approval of tonight's agenda. Did anyone see any errors? Anything that needs to be changed? Then without objection, we will approve the agenda for September 19th. September 9th, I'm sorry. A few days ahead. Public comment. Ms. Gibson, do we have anyone to say?
We do, that's Lynn Martin.
Okay. Ms. Martin? Right there would be fine, yes.
Hello, I'm Lynn Martin. I represent only myself, not any affiliation that I'm part of. I'm here as a citizen and as a parent. I used to have children in your care. Now I have grandchildren in your care. But I'm here to, first I want to say, just because I might have a different opinion than yours, does not think I'm hostile, because I'm not hostile. I'm here specifically to ask for funding for the Salem Auditorium Restoration Project. The community needs to know that while we leave our children in your care, we expect you to be the trustees that you claim to be. And the former Tomasi Salem School was left without fire and safety ADA accommodations while our children were there. And while I'm grateful that we have that auditorium, although it is not usable until we get it up to code, which I feel that the citizens in this whole county and in our town, they are coming off the hip and helping us, and we're having an event. But really, truly, it does go back to you who left it in the shape that it is in, that we are having to restore it. Again, I want to be grateful that we have it. It is a beautiful old auditorium. The tune of $60,000 is the amount estimated to bring it up to fire and safety accommodations and ADA. And usually, we do have people on board that plan to volunteer their time. They're stepping up to the plate. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, and hope that other schools are not left in this situation, because our children are in these schools. And I remember the words echoed, we don't plan to close Tomasi Salem, where you left it neglected standard safety for our children. So I do want to call you on that, but not in a hostile way. The other thing, I do want to just comment on how you do distribute your money. Although I'm proud that Mr. Thorsley can get a 5% raise, but I just wondered what kind of message that sends to our teachers that only got a 4% raise, because I think they are just as important. I think the money needs to be in the classroom and to the teachers. So I just want to throw that out there. The other thing, I really want to applaud you, Mr. Rucat, for bringing up signatures, cursive handwriting several months ago. I almost came to that in the next meeting. And then at Hillbilly Day, I bought a Constitution of the United States that is in beautiful cursive writing, and I wanted to present it to you, but of course, I didn't bring it tonight, so if you allow me, I'll bring it another time. But our students, I taught my own son to have a signature. Children need to have a signature. When I opened up a yearbook and they print the name, I'm like, where is the signature? That's part of identity. You know, you want to be able to read a card from your grandmother. You want to be able to read the Constitution of the United States and not Google it and let somebody else interpret it for you. I mean, we need to read it for ourselves and interpret it for ourselves. And that's all I need to say. I thank you for allowing me to be here. And please do not think I'm hostile, because I'm not.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, go right ahead.
I would just like to make one comment for the audience. As far as leaving an auditorium or using it when it was out of code, the way the building code works is that when a building is constructed, you build it according to the code that's in place at the time. And the code changes from time to time. And it's not necessarily mandatory that every building go back and be brought up to the most current code. The code that was in place at the time is what governs that building, at least the majority of the construction. For example, the size of classrooms has changed over time. You probably will find some classrooms in Oconee County and school districts across our country where the classroom might be 750 square feet. Well, the new code calls for 800 square feet. That doesn't mean that all schools with 750 square foot classrooms have to be closed or walls have to be torn down and those classrooms have to be. Now, if you build a new school, it has to be up to the current code. So we were not using Tomasi Salem's auditorium when it was unsafe or we were putting students in danger or anything like that. But the other time, sometimes code restrictions come into place is when a building changes possession. The new owners may have to do things, but as long as the original owners were using it, those don't have to necessarily be changed. So we were not putting students in harm's way. We were not operating an unsafe building as may have been implied. It's just that when the building changed ownership, different code requirements may have come into play. Okay, well, that's not the way it was presented, so I just wanted to clarify that for everyone else.
Houses, it's very similar students. It's still an old historic building.
But it's no longer school district property.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Anyone else, Ms. Gibson? No, that's all? Okay, discussion items, opening of school update, Dr. Thorson.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to share a couple of things. Of course, we have not, well, we did meet, I guess, shortly, just for the graduation ceremony right at the end of summer there. But we've been in school for several days now, and we have just checked a minute ago, 10,548 students attending our schools as of today. So, which is about normal for us over the past few years. We have, we've grown a little bit, but it's largely been because our 4K program has expanded. So the kindergarten through 12th grade students, that number's been very, very steady for a number of years, decades, for example, as a matter of fact. But we've had a good start to the school year, no major problems. We are short some bus drivers, so that's something that if anybody knows someone who'd like to drive a bus, we'd like to hire those people. But the current bus drivers we do have done a remarkable job of not having significant delays or anything like that. We need, 12 bus drivers still, so it's quite a few. but it's been a very positive start to the school year. And I wanted to highlight just a couple of things tonight. And we've got some flyers on the back table if anyone would like to pick it up. But I do want, and you've got this flyer at your place, but I wanted to highlight something that we're joining together with community organizations to do. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and as you know, we have had a student behavioral health committee that's been working for a little more than a year now, and we've made much progress in the way of providing not only for a student's academic and athletic and artistic needs, but we want to help students who are struggling with things like mental health and behaviors and that type of issue. So we had some community members who have actually experienced tragedy. They had experienced suicide in their families, and they wanted to reach out to help students. We've got other organizations that are involved in this, but we've got 3 community events planned. You can see September 23rd, 24th, and 26th. In each of our attendance areas, we're hosting an event called It's Time to Talk. And you can see there the little slogan underneath it, it's okay not to be okay. We want to take the stigma away from mental health and issues there and let our students and their families know that it's okay to ask for help if you're struggling in this area. And we've got those events, and then those are going to culminate in a Hike for Hope. And Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative has graciously allowed us to host this Saturday Hike for Hope on their campus, and that will be the Saturday immediately after these 3 nighttime presentations that will give community members just some ideas of where they can turn for help if they or anyone they know is struggling with mental health issues. It will not only be school district resources there to help, but we're going to have community agencies there and just try to point people in the right direction. And again, we've been really excited with the community support here. We've got many, many different groups helping us with this that we feel like it's going to be a very positive event for our community. So we're excited about that. Also, kind of related to this, at our last meeting we talked about the jobs for mental health counselors. We still need mental health counselors, and I think Ms. Gibson may have it pulled up, but we did just want to let you know we've worked with the Department of Mental Health, and we now are posting their vacancies on our website. So that's our website, and we've worked with them so that if someone looks in the school district website for a mental health counseling job, they can see that we have them there, but then that's hyperlinked to the Department of Mental Health job posting. So we're hoping that will help draw some attention to those jobs, and we can get those filled as soon as possible. So we're excited about that. Just a couple other things that we've done to kick off the year. Our technology department has been extremely busy. We did, I guess, kind of bite the bullet, sort of say, and we spent some money and bought staff computers for all of our teachers to get all of the schools on the same cycle. So all of our teachers got a new computer over the summer and then right here at the beginning of the year. And we're going to try to rotate those every 4 years. So they've been busy with that. That has brought some challenges, but they're up to the task. And then we've had all of our elementary schools, again, going back to the student behavioral health. All of our elementary schools are adopting a program this year called Olveus, and it's an anti-bullying program. It's very specific curriculum that the schools are following, and we're trying to teach our kids that bullying behavior and not treating people the way you would want to be treated can have consequences. And Ravenel had piloted that last year. It went very well. So all 10 of our elementary schools are doing that, as well as Walhalla Middle School. And we're just trying to place a little more emphasis on that so that Oconee County schools are not only physically safe, but they're emotionally safe and places where our students can thrive. So it's been a good start to the school year, and be happy to answer any questions if you have any between myself and the rest of the staff here.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Thorson. Next is the August financial report. Ms. Moore.
We're getting off to our normal slow start as far as our revenues go. We're collecting about 6%, while our year, we're almost 17% of the year has passed, which seems kind of crazy. And same thing with our expenditures. On the check sheet, on the third sheet, I did want to bring your attention to a couple of things. We wrote a check to the Department of Education for $52,800. They were funding us for 9 career counselors, and we only had 8, and so we returned that extra funding to them. Since we only have 8, we couldn't keep that extra money. And then, one other thing. I can't remember what I was going to tell you. There were 2 things. I'll think of it later, I'm sorry. Any questions?
Well, you already took one of my questions away.
Thanks.
Storage buildings at the bottom. There were, one is
And you're talking about what, 8%, the very bottom?
at the very bottom, yes, yes. There's, are they different sizes, Steve? I'm sorry, Mr.
No, like at one area at Wesley, we already had a pad poured, so we didn't have to pour the pad for the storage area, so that helped with the cost. But it was mainly for track and field equipment. We spent all this money on the pads and things for the high jump and the pole vault and that. And you can get those covers that say they protect them in the weather, but you have to replace those like every couple of years. So we put those stores. Seneca didn't have the issue because of the way their bleachers are, but at West Oak and Walhalla, we added those in as part of the capital improvement to do that. But West Oak had a pad, concrete pad that was already there to help with their offset some of their.
Why it was different?
Yes.
I thought of what I was going to do. At the bottom of the report, the check to the Trail Corporation for $74,698. That was for the safety locks. That was part of that money. The $60,000 was funded by the state, and we installed bathroom locks in the kindergarten classrooms. And the other $15,000 was our labor costs to install those, and that did come from the general.
There was actually any room that had any classroom that had a bathroom inside the room.
Right, because the kids will get locked inside, right?
No, there's a thing up top for it. It's for security, so that there's a higher. It's higher on the door.
They can't reach
to keep
it.
them from locking themselves in.
I've seen those.
They could try, but they couldn't get away with it. But it's more for when we do a code red or have an intruder drill. We were having situations where they could get in, but they couldn't lock the door, and that created some concern. So the state put out a grant, and with Ms. Dodd's help and some help from Edie and Richard and that, we got that, and so we used the majority of that to do that. We also looked at some grant money for putting the panic bars on the playground gates that we're installing, so that they're not, kids wouldn't be just like a pinned in area. They have a plan, like in Mr. Rucat's neighborhood behind Walhalla Elementary. They have a place that they go. They have residents they talk to behind there, so the kids would know where to go. And the panic bars would allow them to get out, but they're not able to be opened from the outside without a key. So that's part of our safety of it.
Any other questions, Ms. Moore? Do you have anything else? Okay. Policy EEAE Bus Safety Program, Mr. Hanley.
Yes, and I had some questions earlier from the meeting and things about this. This policy hadn't been updated since 2010, and originally it was a smaller policy that dealt mainly with the drug testing part, and then it was an administrative rule. Well, due to some changes in legislation, Motor Carrier Act and those kind of things, the School Board Association recommends we do an update, but quite honestly, it's not going to affect us adversely in any way. They still include the things you have to have for a CDL. Obviously, you got to pass the test, which if you're interested in the bus driving class, it starts next Monday. The 16th goes through the 19th. If you want to know how to get in that class, you're welcome to call or email me here, or you can call or email Dr. Wright, Mr. Wright at the Transportation Department, and we'll be happy to get folks in there. But the class is 4 days. You got to take the class, pass the test. There's also a physical that this policy talks about. You have to have an initial physical, and then you have to have one at a minimum every 2 years. You could, if you are like me and on high blood pressure medicine, you could have to have one every year. So it just depends on some of your health things, but you could have to have one yearly, and we help our folks with that, especially when the every other year, we have a doctor in place that does those, and we help offset that cost. Nothing changed with those. The drug testing, we've had random drug testing for as long as I can remember. I used to drive a bus before. You had to have a CDL when I was a coach. Random drug testing, they'll pull you. You got, they bring the paper to you. You got an hour to get to the place to get tested, and so on. Also, if you're involved in any kind of accident, you have to immediately be taken for a drug test. That's part of our procedure and policy. This talks about, and it's not a change except the time frame, you can't have more than 4 points off your license in a 12-month period. If you go over that, and that includes with bus or your personal, you can't be speeding in your personal vehicle and get tickets, and it still counts against your CDL because it's all on one license with different endorsements. DUI, you lose that. That is revoked. That hasn't changed. So there's not a whole lot of change for us. I just think they took it and went from administrative rule to policy, and it's been 10 years since they updated it, so they wanted to get in line with the legal references. If you see on the third page, there's a lot of legal reference updates as we go through. I'm happy to try to answer any questions if you have on that. Yes, sir.
Page 2,
Uh-huh.
the district prohibits, do you see that paragraph? It's scratched out all employees subject to CDL requirements. Then it's got in red, transportation staff. I got the impression that, like myself, I used to drive a bus. Coaches and so on, are they excluded from this? What's that transportation staff defined as?
And I mentioned that before the meeting, I'm gonna clear that part up because I interpret it the same way you do. Right now, we may go to a class, if you're the tennis coach,
Right.
and you're teaching PE, we may go to your class, if your name gets pulled for the drug testing, you may come to your principal and say, Mr. Rucat's the track coach, I need him to go take the drug test, here's his form, he's gotta do it, before 2 o'clock or whatever, and then be back, so you're gonna have to cover his class. I interpreted that, when I think of our transportation staff, I think of our Mr. Wright and our fleet of drivers that are driving all the time. So I said, even to someone before the meeting, that I want to get clarification on that and bring it back to you next week, so I'll have a better understanding of that. But my assumption is the same as yours.
You would think it would apply to anyone who transports students,
Yeah, right.
But
I don't want to
I don't
exclude the
consider-
rest of us like
I
that.
don't consider the coaches transportation staff.
Right.
As this is written, and they specifically marked it out, because, it used to be anybody that had the CDL. So I'm gonna get more detail on that.
Okay.
But I had that same question as well.
And just for the benefit of the audience, most of these changes for our policies come from the South Carolina School Boards Association, and they get most of their changes from the National School Boards Association. Those agencies have lawyers that specialize in school policy. They make recommendations to our districts based on changes in the laws that happen on a nationwide or a state basis. That keeps all the school districts from having to hire individual attorneys to look at things for ourselves. So most of these changes were things that came from those two organizations and were sent down to districts. And we make changes to our policy just to stay current with current laws, current legislation. So that's why we're having to do a little more exploring to make sure what we're recommending to our school board, that we have a full understanding of it.
And that's why we do a reading of multiple votes on it to make sure we've had time
Right.
to do that.
And there'll be no action tonight, it's just for discussion. We'll have it on the agenda next week for first reading. Anything else, Ms. Tandy? Do you have anything to add to that?
On that part, no, sir.
Next, policy, IHBF, medical homebound instruction, Ms. Simmons.
Yes, sir. Just a couple of changes on this policy. It really goes in order with just some of the conditions that exist. They added to just a physician, a physician's assistant, or properly authorized advanced practice registered nurse can also certify that a student's unable to attend school. And then also the third bullet there is in addition that homebound instruction must be approved by the superintendent or his or her designee on the appropriate forms that we use that are from the State Department of Education. And then the fourth bullet there has been removed. And the only other addition is at the very bottom there as one of the legal references has been taken out, and then there's one that's added, and number 4 was also taken out.
And Ms. Hughes in our department handles the homebound with the form, and she makes sure people get the right form. It's an I policy, and so Ms. Simmons deals
Her
with
policy.
typically, we're sitting over here like, okay, who's gonna do this one? But her department does home base, so there are a lot of similarities there. But Ms. Hughes is the designee from Dr. Thorson to do all those and handle the homebound. And we get a lot of them.
Any questions, Ms. Simmons, on that? And policy IKA-R, grading assessment systems.
Okay, and this is part of our uniform grading policy. You can see under grading scales, our grades K through 2 receive ESN and U for all ratings, whether they're for academics or for our related arts areas. We did separate grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8, so you can see the differences there. Where academic ranges are the same for those grade levels in 3 through 5, they receive the ESN and U for related arts. At the bottom, the state uniform grading scale for grades 9 through 12. You'll see at the bottom of page 1 onto page 2 and at the top of page 3, the numerical breaks for the letter grades, the weightings for all the specific courses, whether they're CP, honors, AP, and the conversion chart for computing the grade point ratios are all listed in those tables for you. On page 3, the conversion process is a new addition to the policy. All report cards and transcripts will be using numerical grades for courses that are carrying Carnegie units. You can see further into the policy there in the middle that there's actually a difference between when the courses were offered on what you're actually using. So you can see that the conversion scale there for courses that were completed during the 2015-16 school year have a different conversion than when courses are completed in 2016-17 and thereafter. The bottom of that page just talks about when at the top, like the WF, FA, when those are awarded on a transcript for a student. So that's in more detail there at the bottom. At the top of page 4, when a district's considering a student's transcript, we can get a lot of supporting evidence to help us make a decision on transferring of students' grades. And this also goes along with any international students, so looking at course syllabi, lesson plans, assessments, things like that, if that's necessary. End of course testing is a new section there. Courses requiring an end of course testing, the district must apply the mandatory 20% weighting of the EOC to the student's final grade, and that this exam can only be taken at the end of the regular course duration. Then when we move down to the honors courses, the main thing in this part of the policy to highlight is the district may designate honors courses and give the assigned weighting under those particular conditions that are bulleted there. All of them are built around the profile of the South Carolina graduate.
So of course you want the curriculum to extend, you want to be sure the instructional practices are demonstrating appropriate differentiation, and then the assessments that are given must also be aligned with honors level curriculum, have formative and summative assessments included. Also right down at the bottom of the honors courses section, also PE1 or any other course substituted for PE1 cannot be given an honors weighting. In the transfer courses credit, if a student's transferring in from schools that are not accredited, again, parents or the institution has the opportunity to provide us with evidence to be considered for honors weighting. You'll see at the top of page 5, before we're able to transcribe the honors weighting for a student's transcript, we will be using the South Carolina Honors Framework criteria, which we're required to do if we are trying to create an honors level class to be submitted to the state. So we would use that framework to help guide our decision making. In our previous policy, we had a whole separate section on students transferring from a home school or non-accredited private school. This is already worked into the new policy, so we were able to keep some of that in there and not make it a whole separate section. But a change we did make to maintain consistency on how we were approving honors weighting credits for students who are transferring in is we did take out that the school department leaders could determine credit being awarded to add in the superintendent and or his or their designee, which would be me. So that way we can be looking at all of that consistently and making sure that we're awarding credit like we need to be. The next part that is added in is basically focused mostly on the advanced learning opportunities and the criteria for those particular classes. The type of full quality point will be awarded above the CP weighting for these types of credits, and it breaks down the required minimum hours of instruction that a student needs to receive. In the dual credit and enrollment courses, we've continued with our first paragraph there where we do our MOAs with outside organizations or schools. Again, for a dual credit course, the student has to receive permission from their home school to earn both the Carnegie unit and college credits. College remediation or any kind of orientation classes aren't eligible for dual credit, so those will be weighted as CP. And then also when a student transfers, the weight that's actually applied from the sending institution will be applied to the student's transcript. So we are not allowed to change the weighting for the dual credit course to match our state's process. Then on the top of page 6, we have the grade point averages. Of course, for the uniform grading scale on figuring the GPA and class rank, it applies to all courses carrying Carnegie units, including units earned even at the middle school level as well. You can see there in the policy the formula that we are to use uniformly in all of our schools for the grade point average. And of course, the board is able to establish the criteria for our honors graduates like we've been, valedictorian, salutatorian, establishing those cutoffs as well, and class rank for life scholarships. In the course withdrawals section, we did not have any changes there except for the addition of one sentence in paragraph 3 that if a student who withdraws with administrative approval, that they will be given the WP on their transcript. On the retaking of courses, we have no changes there, as well as no changes on proficiency-based courses. And then on auditing, we just liked the section that the School Boards Association had for auditing a course. So a district will allow a student to honor a course for no grade. They must obtain permission before taking the class, have to follow all the school's policies on attendance, participation, the course requirements will not be calculated into their GPA as well. No changes on the major and minor assessments, still sticking with the 60-40. And then the last section on the floor grades, The intent of the floor grade is to encourage the students to continue to work hard toward the mastery of a course. So high school students and middle school students in credit-bearing courses will receive less than 50% for the first half of their course, and then all other middle school and elementary students will not receive less than 50% for the entire course.
There's a lot to cover. Any questions?
Yes, sir. There's no 4.0 anymore, is there? I picked up on that. The floor grade, in other words, the teacher's lowest grade that they can put in a semester will be a 50, correct? Okay. When you look at the honors section, there was criteria for an honors class. Are we ever in a situation where we may have a CP and honors in the same classroom?
I think
It
so.
could,
And how do we designate?
it could happen in very specialized classes, so it's possible that there could be an visual arts class where we have some students who want visual arts 3, the third year of it, and some want visual arts 3 honors. A high school may only have one art teacher. Probably does only have one art teacher. And then to make the number of sections work out, because a teacher doesn't teach more than 6 sections, they may have to put 2 classes in the same classroom at the same time. If that were to happen, the art teacher would have an extended curriculum for that honors class where they would do additional assignments over and above what the students in the CP level 3. So it's not often that happens. You won't find that in English or math, but in some of our smaller specialized subject areas that could happen.
Because I kept looking at who approves I think we do, but who approves the syllabus for an honors class? In other words, does someone look at the syllabus and say, yes, this is
Yes,
honor qualified?
in the framework, it has to have all these specific criteria that is listed for the class, which would be part of what would be on a syllabus for those classes.
Right, because it keeps referring to a profile of a South Carolina graduate.
Right.
It must be a book.
It's what's on the wall in here. It's that it was adopted 3 years ago, maybe. We've got a poster of it in your conference room right there. I'll show you when we get in there. But those criteria for honors level courses are set by the State Department.
Yes.
So we, even like our AP classes, someone else has to approve those before we.
Well,
skip them.
AP comes through College Board, so
Right.
those would already be set. Mhm.
And honors would be the same way through the state.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else, Ms. Simmons?
No, sir.
Okay, policy KLGA, school resource officers, Mr. Hanby.
Not a lot of change here. I think the biggest thing is if you look under jurisdiction, about the 4th line down, it talks, or 3rd line down, school resource officer is not a school disciplinarian, will not be requested or permitted to intervene in school discipline matters unless authorized by the district code of conduct, which level 3 lead to criminal charges potential criminal charges in our district. Although, at the request of the administration, if there's potential there for something in a level 2 or so to maybe get more involved or more in depth, they can have them in there. But I think this came out, well, if you saw the incident in Spring Valley where the resource officer went into the classroom, the girl kept her head down and wouldn't get her head down, pulled her out of the desk and things. This also talks about, there were a lot of districts who were charging students with disturbing school when they would misbehave and do that. They kind of cleaned that up, and that's more a charge for someone who is on the outside of the school that comes into the school rather than for our students. There are some rare cases where you could be charged as a student with disturbing school, but it's not as blanketed as it was. I think people were abusing that and overusing that to get folks, get problem children out of school and that. So they wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. There's also, we have this, but there has to be a memorandum of understanding. And on page 2, the red, they help us. Ms. Hughes goes around with our resource officers, with Mark Laws from the Sheriff's Department, other deputies, to do our training. You know, we have to have 2 Code Red drills per school per year now. And so we typically let the school do 1 and kind of go through things with their students and staff and that. And then we do what we do, and that's, we get somebody to go in there and see how they react. I mean, we don't tell them we're coming, and they don't like it, but we get somebody to go in there and we see how they respond, and then we video it. The person has a GoPro on, they video it, they sit down, they look at it, and they come with a plan of how they can make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to and what we need to correct in order to make it as safe as possible. You know, so we get calls sometimes. We ask them to do an all-call and say, you know, messenger call and say, we had a Code Red drill today, if your children come home talking about it. But the problem becomes when kids get on their phone during the drill that they don't know is a drill. That's, you're not supposed to tell them, and they're texting and calling and that, which not much you can do about that at this point. But our resource officers do help us with that, and we're fully staffed with our resource officers. That's exciting. We've got one in every school, and we're pleased with that. But just a couple of little things, and making sure that our schools use our resource officers the way they're intended to be used, not as the heavy hand.
Any questions, comments on that one?
They have already written, I think she told me 25 vaping tickets. Tickets for vaping this year. We're on day 15.
15, something like that.
Major problem.
They'll get used to the new policy. School calendar 2021, Mr. Hamby.
Yeah, I think Dr. Thor's in
Our intent is to have a recommendation for you next week for the 2021 calendar, but this document that you have at your place, the reason it was not an exhibit is because this survey didn't close until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So Mr. Hamby printed it, and you have a copy, but if you remember last May, Mr. Hamby and I received permission from the state school board to start our middle schools and high schools a week earlier than what's allowed by state law. That state law does have the caveat that the state board can approve exceptions to it for very specific academic reasons. The State Department of Education told me when we asked about presenting to the state board that there's no way it would be approved for all students in Oconee County, but if we had a specific reason to ask for it for high schools, which we felt like we did, that they would consider it. They did consider it. They approved that we could start our middle and high schools a week early. By doing so, we can finish the first semester before Christmas break, and that will allow students to take their exams prior to Christmas break, so they don't have a 2-week break between the majority of their instruction and their exam period coming in January. It also gives us more instructional days prior to AP testing, which is a positive. If we don't get to start the second semester until, say, the 10th or 11th of January, that reduces the number of instructional days before AP exams are given, because those exam dates are set by the College Board, and we have no say-so in when those tests are given. And the third advantage of starting a week early at the high school level is that it keeps there from being any kind of overlapping schedule between the school district of Oconee County and Tri-County Technical College, or any other college where our students might be participating in dual enrollment. And that did create a situation the past couple of years where our second semester students who were taking dual credit at Tri-County Tech, their second semester started while we were still in first semester. So we had students who were supposed to be in 2 places at one time. And this prevents that from happening. Right before school was out, we quickly surveyed our staff. And I say right before school was out in May, We surveyed our staff because we felt like if the staff was opposed to starting on 2 different schedules, then it was not even worth going to the parents. But our staff was moderately supportive. I think about 70% of our staff said that they would be at least willing to try. They weren't saying it was their preference, but they were willing to give it a shot because they felt like the advantages for high school students outweighed their hesitancies, I guess. Mr. Hamby, just in the last week, worked with technology staff to get that same survey put out to parents. How many respondents did we have?
2,097.
So pretty good response rate from parents. And if you'll flip to, the pages aren't numbered, but if you'll flip 3 pages over, so you're looking at the 4th page, the question to me that's most important is the one that has the bar chart there. It's got a green bar. The first bar is green. It says, please share your feelings about the 2021 school calendar options. The green one says, I'm in support. The one beside that says, I would prefer not having to do that, but I understand, so I'm willing to give it a shot. And if you look at those 2 numbers, 39 and 32, that means 71% of our parents are at least willing to give it a shot, having 2 different start dates. So essentially, what our 2 options are to start everyone on the 17th of August. And by doing that, there's no way to complete the first semester before Christmas. It's not possible, so students would come back after Christmas and complete the first semester. The second option, which the state board gave us the waiver for, is that we can start our middle schools and high schools on August 10th. Our elementary schools would start on August 17th, a week later. And while there would be a week difference on that side, and then our elementary school students would go a week longer, they would go a week longer at the end of the school year, all of the holidays and breaks in between those 2 times would be identical. Thanksgiving break's the same time, teacher in-service days are the same time, Christmas break is of course the same time. So it's just the week at the end, week at the beginning that would be different. We've not really even had a chance as an administrative team to look at this and formulate a recommendation, but we will certainly have that for next week. And if you so desire, we would put it on the agenda for your approval next week. I will say I was a little bit surprised at the positive or the willingness for our parents to give this a shot. There are pros and cons within the school district. One positive for Ms. Simmons is that if we were a week off on our starting schedules, she could focus professional development for teachers. She would have a week of middle and high teachers where she would focus just at the secondary level. Then they would be in school starting, and then she could focus her professional development for elementary school teachers. There's a similar advantage in the Office of Technology where they could focus on the middle and high schools, getting technology ready, and then they'd have another week to work on elementary. It creates some issues for Ms. Moore's staff because now they've got a couple of different calendars for staff. So payroll could be a little bit different between middle and high schools and elementary, and it could create some issues there. Likewise with our power school staff, we would have 2 different calendars for our schools. Elementary would be on one, middle and high on the other. So there are pros and cons. However, if you just look at what's best for high school students academically and instructionally, I can argue that starting on the 10th is a tremendous advantage. So that's where we are.
Well, hopefully
I
the
want to
thing,
continue to let people know, because it came up in here, because I looked through a lot of the comments before we, closed it down. And there may be more added on after that, but people still have a misunderstanding. Number one, we did apply for and get approved for a waiver. Whether y'all choose to use it or not will be another decision. We cannot, like some people said, why don't you just start everybody the 10th? I would love that. Life would be so much easier.
if our state would move into the 21st century and give us the authority to do it, we could.
So I want to make sure that people are aware that it's not us just trying to get crazy with a calendar, my life would be a whole lot easier making a calendar if the state legislature would say, we're not gonna control you and make you start on the third Monday, like we have for the past 6 or 7 years. So for the people who did the survey, thank you. For the ones who put in there, why can't you just start them all at the same time? The only way we can do that is start on the 17th or after.
Dr. Thornton, let me ask a question that you might have already answered. Out of the 80 some odd districts that we have, has a survey been made of the superintendents to find out what % of them favor starting the week earlier? Has anything like that been done?
I haven't seen anything like that. I can just tell you anecdotally, the majority of school district superintendents would want the ability to set their school calendars locally. I feel strongly that government should be at the lowest level possible. Laws and regulations should be given to the governing body at the lowest level, the level closest to the people. It's much easier for our citizens to talk to you than it is to talk to state legislators. It's much easier to talk to state legislators than it is the United States Congress. So I think the lowest level practical is the best way to govern. You guys are elected. You govern the school district of Oconee County. I have no idea why our state legislature took away the right for you to set the Oconee County school calendar. And I think the legislature made a tremendous mistake doing that, and I think they should get out of the school calendar business and give that back to local elected school boards. And then if parents didn't like the calendar you set, they could talk to you about it, or they could elect someone else for their local school board. That, to me, is very important, and I think our legislature made a mistake in just getting into the calendar business to begin with.
I totally agree with everything you said, but with the majority of the districts in favor of allowing each school district to set their own calendar, or at least a week earlier, for those advantages that you've already talked about, then what kind of pressure do the districts maybe need to take to get legislature to wake up and stop being stupid? Well,
certainly our three representatives in the state legislature, well, senator and two House of Representatives, you know, our folks need to talk to them, but those three can't do it alone. It needs to be parents and families from across the state need to contact their legislators and tell them that we don't want you in the school calendar business. We want flexibility on that. And this, of course, stems from the coast. I understand the Horry County Chamber of Commerce has a lot to do with school calendars across South Carolina, because they want people visiting and renting rooms down at the coast the whole summer. They also want cheap high school labor because it's inexpensive to hire high school students to take the jobs along the coast. And I don't think that should affect what goes on in Oconee County. Horry County can set their calendar. We need to be able to set
And
ours.
the legislature turned right around and gave the State Department of Education authority to grant the waiver, to start high schools and middles a week early. Not many people are going to leave their middle schooler at home and take the elementary kids to the beach, and you're not going to hire elementary kids.
Kids go work at the beach.
And we did talk just before the meeting. Mr. Hanvey and I were just kind of thinking out loud, should we go back to the state board now and say, look at all these comments from our parents who don't want to start. They're willing to try because it's good for high school students, but they don't want to do this. Can we have a waiver for elementary too? And we can try that.
Do they have authority to do that? I don't know how the law is.
I'm thinking it probably would take some law. I'm sure you'd have lawyers arguing that they do and lawyers arguing that they don't.
Is the State Department behind this?
What about the Superintendent's Association? Don't you guys have a Superintendent's Association?
We do.
There would be a good place to start.
And I can certainly do that. At the beginning of October is the next time that group meets. Our meeting, we were meeting last week and it was canceled because of the hurricane. But
They're just creating hardships on school districts because they have enough to say grace over. and leave the school districts alone, in my opinion.
Right,
I know
again,
that Pickens voted to ask again for the waiver for the entire district. I saw that, and then I know that there were, it's growing because there were, in the Rock Hill area, there were several superintendents who were complaining about, so the push is gaining more momentum.
So it's
just a matter
the
of can we
upstate pushing.
get enough.
Why don't we try pushing again?
sure.
I think
We can do it.
through the association, I think you might be gaining some ground.
Is the State Department of Education and our state superintendent, are they pushing it too, or is it even an issue with, she has.
They would be supportive of giving local school boards the ability to set calendars.
They have lobbyists and everybody else that's there every day with the legislation.
And there were actually 4 pieces of legislation entered last year to give that authority back to school
Never
boards,
made it
but
out
they
of
never made
committee.
it out of committee.
Well, I think we need to have it on the agenda. We need to make a decision. This starts, we're talking about next school year, so I think we need to, if you can have it ready, a recommendation ready by.
I think we're comfortable with doing that.
Everybody comfortable with doing that?
And we'll put it on the, I think we'll probably make it an exhibit, so it'll be out there and y'all can think about it and be prepared to vote next
Well,
week.
I think I think we need to, it be next year's school calendar.
Okay.
Anything else on the school calendar? Do you have anything else on it, Ms. Tandy?
No, sir.
Code Learning Center property.
Yes, we have some representatives here from the Blue Ridge Community Center, and Dr. White is this man who we've been going through. But earlier
Last month.
last month, Dr. Thorson, myself, Mr. Alexander from Facilities, and Dr. White, and a number of folks on this committee met to discuss the progress that they made since they got the back part, the old Blue Ridge High part of code, and the things that they've been doing. And they understand that when we finish our new career center, and we're repurposing the current career center, and we'll move our adult ed program over there, that the front newer part of the facility will be vacated. And so we were talking about a plan for that. And as you can see in the letter that we have each of you a copy with, they would like to request ownership of the property as soon as possible to go along with what we gave them beforehand. There's also, as we're moving, we were talking, we'll take some things with us, but we won't take everything out of the building. If there are things that, desks and things that we are not taking with us to the other facility, they ask that we leave those so that they might could use them in their facility as well. And we actually have talked to them a little bit about some things now that we have in storage at the old Walhalla Middle School on the second floor, where really the only thing we do there is use it for storage, and the sheriff's department practices their intruder drills there. If they might be able to look and see if there are things there to get through the curing that, we would need your blessing of the board for them to be able to get some of those items. We're talking about old desks and some things that they could use as they bring kids in for after-school programs or Saturday activities or summer activities and those kind of things. So what they would like to do is get word from you in the very near future about whether you are willing to let them take over the remainder of that building. They're in the process of working with some folks and maybe having some tenants and things who could help offset some of the costs. We've had some very hard and honest discussions about the cost of the facility and how things go. And when a new roof is due, you're talking a lot of money, and they've seen the power bills. We've shared with them the power bills and utility stuff, and they understand that. And so we've tried to have some open and honest dialogue about what we're going to do there. But they would like to be able to begin planning and moving forward, if it's the will of the board, to let them have the other part of the building at code, as well as what they currently have when we vacate it. We're, you know, that's going to be August.
But I think the ask right now is that you would go ahead and approve, I think, two things. They're asking for the facility when we vacate it, so you'd be approving now that they would take it over next August. And then the second thing they're asking is that if there is any equipment, desks, tables, chairs that we're not going to use, that would just be either thrown away or sold through a warehouse sale, that you would approve that they would get some of that unused furniture as well. And I would further say, as approved by Mr. Alexander or Mr. Hamby, that because they're the ones who make those decisions on whether something's usable for us to move to another facility or it's not. So those two things. And I wanted to add, someone told me many years ago, a local attorney here just talked about how old school buildings can become eyesores for communities if they're not taken care of. Mr. Hamby, and we've had the conversations with the Blue Ridge Community Center representatives, that it's very expensive to maintain a building with the utility bills and just the everyday things. But then when major problems come up, it's time to replace a roof or the HVAC system needs to be changed. Those are tremendous expenses. I feel personally that the school district's responsible for taking care of buildings. So I would like to just consider having a reverter clause. Us donate it to the Blue Ridge Community Center, and I hope that it's successful and they're able to get all the funding they need to make that a very viable, community-centered location. But if for some reason it's not, if the roof started leaking 5 years from now and they just couldn't keep up with it and they had to find a different facility, that there would be a reverter clause back to the school district so that we could do the responsible thing, tear the building down, and then have the property be repurposed. Because I just don't, we've got examples in this county where old school buildings have become eyesores. I could name a couple where one just recently that has become an albatross for the city of Seneca, the Kellett facility, just because there wasn't really a good plan. I think the folks with the Blue Ridge Community Center have a great plan. And again, I want to support them and I want it to work. But if it doesn't, I just don't want there to be a building that becomes a problem for the communities.
Well, we've given old buildings to other community.
We have.
And revisionary clauses are kind of standard,
Yeah. And I'm not saying we want to take it back to use it. We don't. But again, I don't want it to just, I guess ultimately it would become a problem for the city of Seneca because it would be in the city's, the city limits. And I feel like because it was a school, the school district should then be responsible for,
whatever it means.
Mike, to back up exactly what you're saying, I wish that the reverter clause had been added in when the school district turned the Fairplay School over to.
That's a great example.
The youth center there. If you want to see an example of an eyesore, just ride through Fairplay and look at that old school down there.
I was going to say, have your IT department look at code and try to keep all the infrastructure.
Well, we've talked to them that we will, we'll have to take our card access, we'll have to take a lot of our things.
Yeah,
we would have to take, but.
Let's say the switches, the cabling and all that.
The cable, but we've got the switches kind of right now, but we'll definitely
You got
work.
switches.
We'll definitely work with them in any way we can with your permission. And we look forward to it. We've had multiple conversations with them, and you can sense and feel the passion and the way they do things. And I want it to work as much as anybody. I've already got some partnerships. Let's see, Mr. Yoder's here. They've got another group in Seneca that's they're starting to partner with. So good things coming, hopefully, for our community in that. But what we'd like for you guys at next week's meeting would be to approve and I'll get some of the legalese stuff that we've done in the past with these from Scott, and we'll do that, approve them taking over when we finish. I told them we'll shoot for August, but if something goes wrong, we don't get out in time because we can't get into the new, we're gonna get the new career center, but it may, be right at the last minute to move out the other stuff, so they'll be patient with us and work with us, but also we'll start, and maybe Richard and I will take them around to the upstairs at Walhalla Middle, Colonel Cone Academy, and see if y'all are willing to let them do that. I'd like to have that on the agenda for next week.
And some of the things that have already happened in that building have been great. At our last meeting, we saw some pictures of things they've been doing, and it's been great. Very positive, not only for the community, but specifically for our students. So it's a great thing, but I just don't, I don't want there to, 20 years, 25 years from now, there'd just be a building that's sitting there that's in disrepair and broken out windows and things like that, because that's not good for any community. I just want to be, I guess, kind of go on the record saying the school district is responsible for, if this doesn't work out, that we would try to make it right.
The last thing we need is another vacant school building. So, since everyone have it on the agenda for action next Monday then?
We need to hear anything.
Any
from Dr.
comments,
White.
Dr. White?
That's what?
When given the opportunity. Again, we appreciate the school board giving us the opportunity to work with the old section, of course, the county administration as well. We're well aware of the things that Mr. Handy and Dr. Thorson have been talking about. We understand the pitfalls that we might run into. But I tell you, I never knew there was so much going on in this county until we undertook this process. Finding out that there's so many good people and so many good things going on, and people needing that facility. If we could go back and look at the kind of things we've had going on and the amount of people, but the thing that touched me most, every 2 years, people from the OCTS and the Blue Ridge High School, they come back. And I think this last year they had over 200 of those folks coming back. And they're now giving to the center because they want to see that thing last. You don't know what you don't know until some things happen. And we know some things are going to happen. But we do believe that we've got the support, one, from the community, and then secondly, from some folk that are waiting because there's some needs. These guys that are here with us from the way, we've had conversations with a lot of not-for-profits. And we've had people talk about coming from the Clemson area, after-school programming, summer school feeding. You wouldn't believe the number of people that we've had conversations with. But there was nothing that we could do because it was not climatized. Now, moving into, if we have the opportunity to move into that other section, I think we're going to see some tremendous events and opportunities and things going on. The community itself, with all of that property that's right there for the kids and those housing authority areas right around us, we just invite you guys to come see it when we're in action. Just in the last 2.5 years, I'd venture to guess that we probably had 10 to 12 different events, and from people from across the county, I would say we probably had at least 2,000 or 3,000 folk for whatever reason coming through for different events. So we're up to the challenge. We know that it's going to be some sweat because we've had that sweat equity already. But we've got some folk, many of them here tonight, that's willing to go that route. And as Dr. Thorson talks about, hey, when we hit that road where we just can't go through the jungle or go through the impasse or whatever the case may be, let's revisit it.
That's right.
Well, I wish you much success. That's
For sure.
It'll be a beautiful place over there. It really can.
It's a good facility to have been built many years ago.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. That concludes the open session portion of the meeting. Again, I want to thank you for being here this evening. We will have an executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations and changes, and then we will return to open session for any action required. So without objection, we will go into executive session for personnel, employment recommendations and changes. Thank you.